40 years ago, China looked very different from the country we know today. Most Chinese people lived in rural areas, average income was extremely low, the country had limited trade with the outside world. Its cities had few skyscrapers, few private businesses, and very little modern technology. But today, China is one of the most powerful countries on Earth. It is a global manufacturing center. It has some of the world's largest cities, busiest ports, fastest trains, and most advanced technology companies. From smartphones and computers to clothes, toys, solar panels, batteries, and electric vehicles, Chinese production has become part of everyday life around the world. So, how did China change so dramatically in only 4 decades? And how did China's rise transform the global economy, technology, trade, and international politics? This is the story of how China changed the world in 40 years. The story begins in 1978. At that time, China was still recovering from decades of political and economic instability. Most industries were controlled by the government. Private businesses were almost non-existent. Farmers worked under collective farming systems. The country produced most goods for its own people and had limited access to international markets. After the death of Mao Zedong, a new leader became increasingly influential. His name was Deng Xiaoping. Deng believed that China needed a new economic direction. He understood that the country could not develop quickly if it remained isolated from the global economy. So, China introduced a new policy. It became known as reform and opening up. China did not completely abandon socialism. Instead, it allowed certain parts of the economy to operate according to market principles. Farmers were given more control over production. Private businesses were gradually permitted. Foreign companies were encouraged to invest. Chinese factories were allowed to produce goods for international markets. This was a historic change. Deng Xiaoping focused less on ideology and more on results. His approach was simple. If a policy improved people's lives and strengthened the economy, then it was worth trying. This practical attitude became the foundation of China's transformation. The first major changes happened in agriculture. Before the reforms, many farmers worked collectively. They had limited control over what they produced. They also had little personal incentive to increase production. Under the new system, farming families were given responsibility for specific areas of land. They still had to provide a certain amount of food to the government, but after meeting that requirement, they could keep or sell the extra produce. This small change created a powerful incentive. Farmers began producing more. Food production increased. Rural incomes started to rise. As agricultural productivity improved, fewer workers were needed on farms. Millions of people were now able to move into new jobs in factories, construction, transportation, and services. This movement of labor became one of the engines of China's economic growth. China then created special economic zones. These were selected areas where the government allowed more flexible business rules. Foreign companies received incentives to invest. Factories could import materials, produce goods, and export them more easily. The most famous special economic zone was Shenzhen. At the time, Shenzhen was a small city near Hong Kong, but its location made it ideal for trade and foreign investment. The Chinese government turned Shenzhen into an economic experiment. Foreign businesses were allowed to build factories. Entrepreneurs were given more freedom. Local officials were encouraged to attract investment and create jobs. The experiment succeeded. Shenzhen grew at an extraordinary speed. It transformed from a small city into a major global center for electronics, telecommunications, drones, electric vehicles, and advanced manufacturing. Today, Shenzhen is home to some of China's most important technology companies. It became a symbol of China's new economic model. China often followed the same strategy in other areas. First, test a policy in one city or province. Then, study the results. And if the policy works, expand it across the country. This method allowed China to introduce major reforms without changing everything at once. During the 1980s and 1990s, foreign companies began moving production to China. There were several reasons for this. China had a huge labor force. wages were relatively low. The government invested heavily in ports, roads, electricity, and industrial zones. Factories could produce goods at a large scale, and supply chains became concentrated in the same locations. A company could find workers, materials, packaging, transportation, and shipping services within a relatively small area. This made production faster and cheaper. Soon, China was producing clothes, shoes, furniture, toys, electronics, household equipment, and countless other products. The words "Made in China" began appearing in shops all over the world. In 2001, China joined the World Trade Organization. This was another turning point. Membership gave China greater access to international markets. Foreign investment increased. Exports grew rapidly. China became deeply connected to the global trading system. For consumers around the world, this brought cheaper products. Televisions, phones, computers, clothes, furniture, and household items became more affordable. For global companies, China offered lower production costs and access to an enormous market. But this transformation also created disruption. Many factories in the United States, Europe, and other regions struggled to compete with lower-cost Chinese production. Some industries declined. Some workers lost their jobs. At the same time, other businesses became more profitable by using Chinese factories and supply chains. China's rise created both winners and losers. But one thing became clear: the structure of the global economy had changed. One of China's greatest achievements was the reduction of poverty. Over several decades, hundreds of millions of Chinese people escaped extreme poverty. This was one of the largest reductions in poverty in human history. Economic growth created millions of new jobs. Rural workers moved to industrial cities. Families earned higher incomes. More children attended school. More people gained access to electricity, transportation, healthcare, housing, and consumer products. A new middle class began to emerge. Families that once struggled to afford basic food could now buy televisions, refrigerators, cars, and smartphones. Many parents invested heavily in their children's education. University enrollment increased. Chinese tourists began traveling around the world. Chinese consumers became extremely important to global companies. Luxury brands, car manufacturers, technology companies, restaurants, and entertainment businesses all began paying close attention to the Chinese market. China was no longer only a place where products were made. It also became one of the world's largest consumer markets. China's transformation also created one of the fastest periods of urbanization in history. For generations, most Chinese people lived in villages. But industrial growth created jobs in cities. Millions of workers moved from rural areas to urban centers. New cities expanded. Small towns became major industrial regions. Skyscrapers appeared across the country. The government built roads, bridges, airports, subway systems, power plants, ports, and housing projects. China's leaders believed that infrastructure could support future economic growth. In many areas, the government built transportation networks before businesses arrived. The goal was to make investment easier. When companies saw reliable roads, electricity, ports, and industrial parks, they were more willing to build factories. This approach was different from many developing countries, where businesses often waited years for basic infrastructure. China's infrastructure strategy helped connect factories to ports and consumers. It reduced transportation costs. It allowed goods to move quickly across the country, and it strengthened China's role in global supply chains. One of the most visible symbols of China's development is its high-speed railway system. China built the world's largest high-speed rail network. Modern trains connected major cities at remarkable speed. Journeys that once required an entire day could now be completed in only a few hours. This changed the way people worked, traveled, and did business. Workers could reach new job markets. Tourism increased. Companies could operate across several cities. Regional economies became more connected. China's ability to build railways, bridges, and stations at a massive scale also attracted international attention. Chinese construction companies began working overseas. They helped build railways, roads, ports, dams, and power plants in Asia, Africa, the Middle East, Europe, and Latin America. Infrastructure became an important part of China's global influence. For many years, China was known mainly for producing cheap goods and copying foreign technology. But that image gradually changed. Chinese factories learned from international companies. They gained experience in engineering, management, logistics, and product design. The government invested heavily in education, research, universities, and advanced technology. Chinese companies moved into telecommunications, robotics, electric intelligence, electric vehicles, drones, digital payments, and battery production. China became a major player in fifth-generation communication technology, also known as 5G. It developed advanced e-commerce platforms. Mobile payments became common across the country. In many Chinese cities, people could buy food, pay bills, book transportation, and send money using only a smartphone. China also expanded its space program. It launched satellites. It sent astronauts into space. It built its own space station. It completed missions to the Moon and Mars. China was no longer only manufacturing products designed in other countries. It was increasingly developing its own technology, brands, and innovations. The phrase "made in China" began evolving into "designed in China" and "innovated in China." China also changed the global clean energy industry. The country invested heavily in solar panels, wind turbines, batteries, and electric vehicles. Chinese factories produced these technologies at an enormous scale. Large-scale production helped reduce costs. As prices fell, renewable energy technologies became more affordable in other countries. Solar panels manufactured in China were installed across Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Americas. Chinese companies became major producers of electric vehicle batteries. Chinese electric cars began competing in international markets. This created both opportunity and tension. Supporters argued that China was helping the world move toward cleaner energy. Critics argued that Chinese companies received strong government support, making it difficult for foreign manufacturers to compete. There was another contradiction. China became a leader in renewable technology, but it also remained heavily dependent on coal. Rapid industrial growth created serious air pollution, water pollution, and carbon emissions. So China became both an important part of the climate problem and an important part of the possible solution. As China's economy grew, its political influence also increased. In 2013, China launched the Belt and Road Initiative. The project aimed to improve trade and transportation links between China and other countries. Chinese institutions financed roads, railways, ports, pipelines, power plants, and communication networks. Many developing countries welcomed the investment. They needed infrastructure but often struggled to secure enough financing from other sources. Supporters of the Belt and Road Initiative argued that it created jobs, improved transportation, and expanded trade. Critics raised concerns about debt, corruption, environmental damage, and political influence. Some countries faced difficulties repaying loans. Others worried that strategic ports or infrastructure could give China too much influence. The debate continues. But the initiative clearly showed that China was no longer focused only on its domestic development. It wanted to help shape global trade routes, investment patterns, and international relationships. China's rise also changed global politics. For many years, the United States was the dominant economic and technological power. But China's rapid growth created a powerful competitor. The two countries began competing in trade, technology, military strength, artificial intelligence, telecommunications, and global influence. The United States introduced tariffs on many Chinese goods. Restrictions were placed on certain Chinese technology companies. China responded with its own policies. Both countries worked to protect strategic industries. Semiconductors became especially important. Modern phones, computers, cars, weapons, and artificial intelligence systems all depend on advanced computer chips. The struggle over semiconductor technology became part of a much larger competition. This competition affected countries around the world. governments had to decide how closely they would work with China. Companies had to reconsider their supply chains. Some businesses began moving parts of their production to Vietnam, India, Mexico, and other countries. But completely replacing China proved extremely difficult. China had spent decades building factories, ports, suppliers, workers, and infrastructure. Its manufacturing system could not be copied overnight. However, China's transformation came with major costs. Rapid industrialization created severe pollution. Many cities suffered from dangerous air quality. Rivers and soil were damaged by industrial waste. The country became one of the world's largest sources of carbon emissions. Economic growth also created inequality. Coastal cities developed faster than many inland regions. Urban residents often had better access to education, healthcare, and employment than rural residents. Migrant workers helped build China's cities. But many faced long working hours, difficult living conditions, and limited access to social services. Housing prices rose sharply in major cities. Local governments borrowed heavily to finance development. The property market became an important source of economic growth, but also a major source of risk. China now faces another serious challenge. Its population is aging. For many years, China had a large working-age population. This gave the country a huge supply of labor. But birth rates have fallen. The number of elderly people is increasing. A smaller workforce may have to support a larger retired population. This could slow economic growth and increase pressure on healthcare and pension systems. China must now find a new model of development. It cannot depend forever on cheap labor, construction, exports, and heavy investment. Future growth will depend more on innovation, consumer spending, productivity, and advanced technology. So, how exactly did China change the world? First, China changed global manufacturing. It became the center of international supply chains. Companies around the world began depending on Chinese factories and suppliers. Second, China changed consumer markets. Mass production reduced the price of countless products. Millions of people gained access to electronics, clothing, furniture, and household goods at lower prices. Third, China changed global trade. Its ports, factories, and exports connected countries in new ways. Fourth, China changed the fight against poverty. Its economic transformation lifted hundreds of millions of people into better living conditions. Fifth, China changed infrastructure development. Its roads, railways, ports, and construction companies influenced projects around the world. Sixth, China changed technology. It became a major competitor in telecommunications, electric intelligence, electric vehicles, batteries, digital payments, and space exploration. Seventh, China changed global politics. Its rise challenged the balance of power that had existed for decades. And finally, China changed the debate about development. China showed that a country could combine strong government control, market competition, foreign investment, long-term planning, and large-scale infrastructure. But the Chinese model also raised difficult questions. Can economic growth continue without greater political freedom? Can development remain sustainable without damaging the environment? Can China manage debt, inequality, and an aging population? And can China rise peacefully without creating a deeper conflict with the United States and other major powers? China's story is not simply a story of success, and it is not simply a story of danger. It is a story of extraordinary transformation. In only 4 decades, China moved from economic isolation to the center of the global economy. It changed how products are made. It changed how goods are transported. It changed what consumers can afford. It changed the development opportunities of many countries. And it changed the balance of power in the world. The biggest question is no longer whether China has changed the world. It already has. The real question is what China will do next. Will it continue to grow and innovate? Will its economic problems slow it down? Will competition with the United States become more dangerous? Or will China help create a new global system in which several major powers share influence? What do you think? Has China's rise created more opportunities for the world, or has it created more risks? Share your opinion in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching.